The Enlisted AI is, of course, a staple of the game. It's what makes Enlisted the game that it is. Without the AI, Enlisted is really just another arcadey World War II shooter that's vaguely realistic and has War Thunder damage models. But one of the biggest complaints that I see from the game is how bad the AI is. Players constantly are talking about this. Anyone who's played more for 10 minutes of Enlisted can tell you stories of their AI running in front of them while they're trying to shoot, or running out in the open just to get shot, getting stuck in some random window or falling off a building to their death, or any other absurd situation that really does take you out of the World War II situation. After all, these are supposed to be like battle-trained soldiers fighting during World War II, and yet I'm watching them like fall off a building in a frankly hilarious way. And then every patch that we get for Enlisted seems to come with a new list of changes to the AI, and yet it never feels like anything is really changing. At most, it feels like the needle is only very slightly moving. The AI always seems to be only slightly more competent than a blind mouse. So I wanted to spend a bit today talking to you guys about how I think Enlisted could actually fix its AI and make them a whole lot more engaging. But before we can do that, I think it's really important that we discuss the function of the AI in Enlisted and how they work. That way we can accurately think about how we can fix them in a way that's fun and interesting, but also doesn't break the fundamentally important ways that they work in the game as it is today. As it stands in Enlisted, the AI serve a really important role. They are essentially a resource. They are extra lives. When you, the player, die, you can immediately respawn by taking control of one of your AI. Now, this is actually one of the most underrated parts of Enlisted, and it's something that I don't think very many people really think about very often. It's actually really genius, all things considered. What it means is that in Enlisted, you have a very action-packed game at all times, since you aren't stuck constantly staring at a respawn screen. Instead, you're frequently re-engaging with enemies that may have just killed you one by one until your squad is finally eliminated. On top of that, AI serve as kind of a fodder in a good way. After all, it's really just fun, and you get a big dopamine rush to gun down an entire squad of enemies with an MG42, or blast them away with, a Sherman tank or something like that. And frankly, that's a lot harder to do against a full squad of real humans as opposed to AI, right? Think about when was the last time, you got like a big 30 kill streak or something like that in Call of Duty or in Battlefield or in Hell Let Loose. It happens, but it doesn't happen in the same frequency that it does in Enlisted. Almost certainly not. So good players who can get tons of kills get a big dopamine rush in Enlisted because they can go and take out tons of enemies with one soldier and feel really cool by doing so. And then you also have less skilled players who can still go and take out these very dumb and ineffective bots and still have a good time without being constantly killed by higher skilled opponents, which makes the game very accessible to a lot of people. So what ends up happening if we actually make the AI a lot better? We go and we make them more accurate, we make them more aware, more deadly. Well, guys, in my opinion, it would actually probably break the game, and pretty quickly, actually. Suddenly, the AI would be like Terminators, right? They would be taking you out through bushes, they'd be sniping you at really long ranges, they'd have these inhuman reaction times where you'd never be able to get the drop on them. Suddenly, you'd have good players who would no longer be able to take out tons of enemies with ease, and instead, they'd just be trading kill for kill at best, and then you'd have the lower skilled players who would really become frustrated by not being able to take out any enemies at all. In other words, guys, the previously mentioned strong gameplay loop of farming those AI for essentially dopamine would break down almost instantly as we made the AI better, and Enlisted would lose its magic. It would lose what makes the game fun. Now, this isn't to say that we can't make the AI better in some regards, like making them a bit more survivable, or making them a bit more accurate, or making them not run in front of me whenever I'm trying to fire my gun all the time. But the point that I'm making here is that the AI being dumb most of the time is fundamentally important to the core gameplay of Enlisted. If we change that, then Enlisted sort of ceases to be what has made it so successful and good up to this point. Okay, Quadra, so we can't make the AI better, but we still have complaints about how bad they are, so what the hell do we do? Well, guys, if you were listening closely, I mentioned that it's important that the enlisted AI are dumb most of the time, not all of the time. What I propose the developers do is to create more engaging systems and mechanics that allow players to directly command their AI to increase their AI's abilities. Now, we already have this to a minor extent in Enlisted with AI formations and the ability to tell AI where to look by marking locations. I think we should take this a step further. As an example, the developers could make it so when a position is marked by the player, the AI will focus on that area, like in a cone, and gain some sort of accuracy and awareness buff to enemies in that area. So they're more effective at shooting and killing enemies in that area since the player has directly commanded them to do so. However, we would also make this ability have some sort of downside in that maybe it has a cooldown. It would make the AI less effective at detecting and engaging enemy threats outside of that targeted area. That way, it would, in my opinion, lead to really interesting gameplay, where players are kind of a squad leader who are calling out priority targets to engage. And also, enemy players can capitalize on this by flanking around enemy positions while they're distracted. Not only would this lead to fun gameplay, but I also think it would fit squarely into the fantasy that Enlisted is trying to sell of being a squad leader during World War II. And this is just the first step. There's tons of other things that you could also do with this system. We could have different formations, like a defensive versus offensive formation, where maybe if you set your AI to defensive, they move a little bit slower, but they're a little bit more accurate while firing and defending a location. While if they're on offensive, they're a little bit faster, but maybe they're not as good at firing at enemies at longer ranges. There's a lot of options that we have here that I think the Enlisted developers should really play around with and try to find something that would be engaging for players to be able to interact with. We could even go so far as to create some sort of officer class in Enlisted. That could be like a small 3-man squad that would buff friendly AI around them, allowing the AI to be more effective combatants as long as the officers are nearby. This too could lead to some interesting engagements where officers are target priorities for the enemies, and if they do die, then all of the soldiers around them lose morale and they're less effective, and then the position is overrun. So you kind of have to protect your officer and make sure that he doesn't go down, but while he's alive, you have a very strong position or a strong force to attack or defend with. Guys, the big point that I'm trying to highlight here and I want to highlight is that the AI should be able to gain effectiveness when they are commanded to do so by players. We don't want the AI to be effective all the time because that'll lead to the frustrating gameplay that I mentioned earlier. Players should be the ones who are in control and are actively engaging with the game and these mechanics to increase their AI's ability. Games are about choice, they're about decisions, and they should have pros and cons to go with each one. So all in all, what do you guys think about Enlisted AI? What are your thoughts on my analysis that I've presented and solutions? Leave a comment down below and like and subscribe while you're there. I really do appreciate it. Without anything else, guys, though, I'll see you next time. Take it easy.